All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to ATP Live. Welcome, everyone. Happy Monday. It's been a while. I've seen everyone because of with the Easter break. I hope you had a wonderful Easter. So we didn't have ATP Live last week because it was Easter Monday. So I hope you all had a wonderful Easter celebration, like I did as well. So it's good to be back. And today is another special day. Today is actually what we call World Malaria Day. Every April 25th, we celebrate the World Malaria Day. So it's a day for us to remember malaria, to create awareness about malaria, and to remember the fight the world is fighting against malaria. So today's a special spotlight on malaria, on World Malaria Day. So I'm going to do a little bit of introduction first about malaria. Then I will take all your questions that you have. Preferably of malaria, but if you have other questions as well, I'm going to take them. So, welcome to ATP Live. Feel free to share the video. Please invite friends and family, everybody that should be here, and just invite them to join us now so that they can also learn. And I'm also going to just share the video in the next 5 minutes and make sure that all our groups can say it. And after that, I will do a brief intro about malaria. What today's World Malaria Day. If you don't know, now you know. And after that, I can um, start taking our questions and answers. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you can all see me, and I hope you can all hear me on our whichever platform you're watching me from on Instagram. I can see some of the Instagram people here, and those who are watching on HCP, our groups. I'm trying to share to the groups as well. And those who are watching on YouTube and those who are watching on listening to Facebook audio, please, you're all welcome. Please share um, the videos and let's okay, so let's everybody be aware so they can join us as well. So I'm also just going to share to some of our groups so that um, everybody can join us now, and then we'll be ready to kickstart. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for being part of this. So invite your friends, share the video, share it to every platform where you can share uh, to, and let them join us as well. Let them know we're about to start now. You can put on your own page as well. And I'm trying to do that as well. So uh, let me just do the sharing and I'll be back. So while I'm sharing the video, if you have any questions, you can start to drop them now until I will have enough time to take them and there'll be no rushing. Um, okay, let's share to our pages. Welcome, everybody. If you are just joining us, you are on ATP Live. Um, and today is World Malaria Day. And so we're going to talk about malaria. And I also just want to remind all of you that Ask the Pediatricians, we're going to do our Children's Day medical outreaches on from May 27th. And so some states, we're doing it in all the states of Nigeria. So watch out for our outreach in the community near you. And if you want to be part of it, you can volunteer. You are welcome to join your state to volunteer, or you can donate. You can support us financially, you can support us materially, and you can link us with organizations as well. So please be part of it, of our outreach. It's our first outreach since 2019. This is the first outreach in the community. We've done school outreaches in between, but this is going to be our first outreach in what's it called now, in 2 years, so to the community. So we're so excited about it. So we're so excited, but we want you to be part of it and we want you to join us. So please join us, donate, support us, and I'm sure the Nigerian children will be grateful to you for doing that. Okay, I'm trying to pin my videos, but I'm always not seeing my own video in ATP. If somebody can say, just pin it for me. And then we're going to start. Okay. Okay, I think I've sent the video. All right, I've been to Richard. Okay. ATP still ATP family. Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to ATP Live Monday. I am Gbemisola Boyede. I'm going to be talking about malaria today, and I'm going to also answer any question you have on this special episode of ATP Live. So please start dropping your questions. I'm just trying to make sure that all the videos are shared and they're in the right places. That's all I'm doing right now. So I'll be done in another 1 minute and then we can start. Okay, I think I've done that. Okay, so we're going to start now. Just 1 more minute. Let me just make sure all the videos are pinned. Okay, I think I've seen my own video that I was looking for. All right. Okay, I guess that's all. And I hope everybody can see me, and I hope everybody can hear me on live audio. And on for those on live audio, you can put this in your. If you have any question, put this in the comment section. And for those on ATP, you can drop it in the comments. I can see it straight away. I can see a few people are here now. Thank you so much. And I can see Instagram people as well. So we're ready to start now. All right, so let's start by talking about malaria first, and then I can now take your questions. So let's start by saying today is World Malaria Day, and I'm sure virtually everybody who is listening to me know what malaria is, and I strongly suspect that at least you may have also had at least one episode of malaria. If you have never had it, let me know. So welcome to World Malaria Day. So why is malaria so important that we have to give malaria a its own day, so its own day out of all the days in the year? We decide to give malaria a special day. It's because malaria is one of the very, very important diseases that the world is fighting, and is a leading cause of death. And there's a lot of money and lots of energy being put into malaria. And so by the time I finish this short presentation, you will understand why malaria is so important, especially for us in Africa, and especially for us pediatricians and for our children. Because when we're talking about the leading causes of deaths of children in Africa, in the world, but most importantly in Africa, malaria is one of the number one reason our children are still dying in large numbers. So malaria is so important because even though many of us do have malaria and you think it's not a big deal and you do recover, but a lot of children actually die from malaria every year. And what is so important is because malaria is actually something that we can prevent. Malaria is a preventable disease. It's not like maybe cancer or those conditions like HIV that we don't have a cure for. Malaria is actually preventable. Malaria is actually treatable. And yes, we are still dealing with malaria a lot all over the world. So it's a disease it's an infection, and it is caused by what a parasite we call Plasmodium, and it is transmitted through mosquitoes, that tiny mosquito, and yet it kills 400,000 people every year. So you can imagine 400,000 people dying from malaria every year just from malaria. You can imagine that how horrible that is. And so it is one of the leading causes of the deaths in children, especially under the age of 5. So that 400,000 deaths are mostly in children below the age of 5. So it is something that we really, really want to deal with. And this is even deaths. Apart from deaths, malaria is also it costs the world millions and millions of dollars every year spent, from treating the malaria, from lost hours. When people are sick with malaria, they have to stay home, they can't go to work. So malaria is not just only a cause of large number of deaths, it's also one of the reasons why Africa is still poor. Yes, because 94% of cases of malaria occur in Africa, and the governments of Africa spend millions of dollars every year trying to get rid of malaria. And so malaria is also one of the reasons why we are poor in Africa, because we spend so much money on treatments, eradication, trying to get rid of this uh, issue. In fact, malaria is what we call a global emergency. It's an emergency because it's not only killing our women and our children, it's also causing poverty in Africa. So the world, everybody were working hard to get rid of this malaria. And this journey has been ongoing for so long. And so that is why this day, 25th of April, every year is dedicated to us dealing with malaria, trying to find solutions to malaria and all that. So that is what we are doing. And now, so you know what malaria is? Malaria is something, it's a disease, it's an infection caused by a parasite, what we call Plasmodium, and this parasite is only transmitted through mosquitoes. So what that means is that if you are not bitten by mosquito, you won't have malaria. So, and it's not just even all mosquitoes. There's only a particular group of mosquitoes, what we call the Anopheles mosquitoes, and it is the female Anopheles mosquitoes that can transmit malaria. And for you to have malaria, it means the mosquito must have bitten somebody that has malaria, and then that mosquito now has the malaria parasite inside his own stomach and blood. So what if that mosquito now bites you, another person, sorry, not you, another person, then that person can have malaria. Now, it is so important for us to understand that, because what that means is, especially for mothers who are listening to me, what that means is that it is not every mosquito bites that automatically means you are going to have malaria. So you can have a mosquito bite, but another kind of mosquito, which is not a Anopheles mosquito or not a female Anopheles mosquito, you are not going to have malaria, even though you've been bitten by that mosquito. Okay? If you have bitten by even a female Anopheles mosquito that has not yet bitten somebody else that has malaria, then you are not going to have, I mean, you're just going to be a mosquito bite. Because one of the questions mothers always ask me is, my baby, oh, see mosquito bites all over my baby, I think I should go and buy anti-malaria straight away. No, because you don't automatically get malaria from being bitten by the mosquito. You must be bitten by a mosquito that already have that malaria parasite inside her. So that is the only mosquito that can transmit um malaria to you. And this is going to be very important when we're talking about how to prevent malaria out, because actually we know everything we need to know on how to deal with malaria. We already know them, but we just keep fighting this battle because these mosquitoes and the parasite, they keep on developing what we call resistance. They keep on changing the the music for the world, and that is why it is so hard. But I think the battle is going to be won very soon. So the only way you get the only way you get malaria, sorry, not mosquito, is by being bitten by a female Anopheles mosquito that has already bitten another person who has malaria. Now, what that means is that because we are living in a country, Africa, most of Africa, and especially Nigeria, in fact, actually half of the world is affected by malaria. It's, almost, it's in one country, so half of the world is affected by malaria, but majority of those that are affected, 94%, is in Africa. So Africa is really a major country dealing with malaria. So out of millions of 241 million episodes of malaria every year, you can imagine, it's a lot of malaria happening, but majority of the deaths happen in only in Africa, So that is how we get malaria. And because malaria is something in the blood, so when the mosquito transmits the parasite to the person, the malaria parasite goes into the red blood cells. So they go into the red blood cell. What that means is that apart from mosquito bites, if you transfuse blood from somebody, if that blood already has malaria parasite inside, then you can actually transfer malaria parasite through blood transfusion. Anything that involves exchange of red blood cells, like blood transfusion, organ transplantation, and even needle and syringes, you can transmit malaria through that means. And mothers can also transmit malaria to their babies. So if you have malaria as a mom and there's malaria parasite in your placenta, your baby can also get malaria from you, even right from the womb. And that is what we call congenital malaria. So I've talked to us about malaria, I've talked to us about how huge the problem is and how we get malaria. It's an infection by that plasmodium, a parasite, and it is transmitted mostly through mosquito bites. But any other scenario where you have blood being transmitted from one person to another, either through blood transfusion or through organ and all that, it can also lead to malaria. And also mothers can transmit malaria to their own babies as well. Now, how do you know you have malaria? Because people in Nigeria, they just feel like, once I feel somehow, I have malaria. I know malaria is so endemic with us, but that does not mean everything is malaria. And now it's really Lagosian's life to make it malaria typhoid. So everything is not malaria typhoid. So you have to be sure you actually have malaria. But what are the common symptoms? The common symptoms is fever. So fever, some people always think that when they have fever, it means they have malaria. So in fact, they call it malaria fever. No, it just is. But that tells us that fever is one of the most common symptoms of malaria. But it does not mean that every time you have fever or every time a child has fever, it means the child has malaria. Because you see a lot of mothers, once their children have fever, they are just starting them on anti-malaria straight away. Initially, we think that will be helpful for us, but we actually found out that it's not helpful for us. So don't treat children for malaria just because their body is hot. So your body being hot is what we call fever. It does not mean the malaria is the cause. In fact, a lot of people will be asking and say, "Oh, doctor, my baby is hot and I've treated her for malaria, but the fever has not gone away." And they are surprised that the fever has not gone away, and I'm like, why are you surprised the fever has not gone away? Why do you think the fever is caused by malaria? Because malaria is not the only thing that causes fever in children. There are like thousands of things that can cause fever in children, in adults. So the fact that the child's body is hot, or even you as an adult, your body is hot, does not mean you have malaria. But of course, malaria is one of the common symptoms. Fever is one of the most common symptoms of malaria. You can also have chills. People start feeling feverish, or they start feeling as if you are cold on the inside, but you're actually hot. So we call that chills. Sweat, some people will sweat, you start sweating. Some may have headaches, some may feel like vomiting, loss of appetite, nausea, body aches. It's also very common in malaria. You see how your body is aching you. You have what we call general malaria. You are just not well. You can't even explain it. So when you see all these symptoms, it may be malaria. Now, apart from these symptoms, there are other symptoms as well, because there are two types of malaria actually. We have what we call simple malaria, or we also have what we call severe malaria. So simple malaria is what majority of us have, and we have malaria. You are still going to work. You are just taking your anti-malaria on the side. You are still doing so many things. So you have the fever and all that, but you are not that very sick on the bed, that. So most of those times it is what we call simple or uncomplicated malaria, but most of the time people don't die from that kind of malaria. But the reason why children tend to die more from malaria is because children, especially below the age of 5, tend to have what we call severe malaria. So when people die from malaria, they tend to die from the severe kind of malaria. And this is when malaria is not just fever and vomiting and all those other symptoms I've mentioned, but the malaria is now causing damage to organs in the body. So when malaria is now causing damage to organs in the body, then we're talking about severe malaria. And there's actually virtually no organ that the malaria cannot affect. So it can affect the brain, and we talk about what we call cerebral malaria, and that is when the children become unconscious and all that. So that is severe cerebral malaria, which is one of the severe malaria. It can cause kidney failure, so it's another cause of severe malaria. It can cause issues in the liver, and the person can have jaundice and all that. It can affect the blood, and the blood becomes so low. The person's red blood cells or PCV will be so low that we have to give them blood. So because they can have what we call anemia or anemic heart failure, and that all those are complications of malaria. So once you have the simple malaria, now going to involve issues with other organs of the body, then we're talking about what we call severe malaria. And this is our major worry for children, because when they have severe malaria, either with severe anemia or with cerebral malaria, or some have, there are a lot of them, the kidney failure and all that. If you have those kind of malaria, then the chances of the child dying is very high, and that is actually what kills children when they have severe malaria, and that's what we don't want to happen, and that is why we need to be aggressive about dealing with malaria. Now, how do we know you have malaria? I know most Nigerians just assume that once you have fever, you have malaria. It's not true. We actually have to confirm that you have malaria by blood test. So there are two kind of blood tests we can do. There's what we call the blood film, where they will, that's the one you will do in the most hospitals. They will take your blood, they will put it on a microscope, we'll look at it, and we'll actually see the malaria parasite inside. And depending on how much of the malaria parasite is, so that is why they will write 1+2+ and all that. So that is a way of testing whether you have malaria. So I want to encourage you not to just treat yourself for malaria without confirming that you actually have malaria. But these days we are not having what we call the rapid test. So the rapid test is not the microscope, because microscope requires a lab scientist, those who are trained to look under the microscope and all that. But the rapid test is something anybody can do. So you just put the blood in the kits. It's like antibody kind of test, and you will see it. Okay, it's positive, it's negative. Of course, there can be false positive or false negative, but it's very fast, and you don't need to be a scientist to do a rapid malaria test. So at least we request that you do minimum of a rapid malaria test if you think you have malaria, before you start treating yourself for malaria. So that is how to confirm. So we have the symptoms, and then we confirm with the blood test. And of course, we can treat malaria. Malaria is preventable, malaria is treatable. And that is why, for a condition that is preventable, that is treatable, it is very painful, that it is killing a lot of our children, and it is not good. And we know what to do with malaria, but we just have to do it. And so there are drugs for treating malaria, and these things change from time to time. I know when I was growing up, it used to be chloroquine, and then we started going to Fansidar, and there's a time it was Alfan. So there are lots of drugs that have been used in the treatment of malaria. Now, the challenge I was telling you that why we're still having the battle with malaria is because the malaria parasite is a very clever parasite. So when you discover a drug for it, it changes and it becomes what we call resistant. So it becomes resistant, so that drug stop working. So most of the time, chloroquine doesn't work anymore for malaria. So we now have to like, okay, what is the next thing? Well, what do we do now? What do we do? Currently now, the next the in the fight against malaria, what we are using now, we have the first line drug we use to treat malaria is what we call the ACT. It is what we call artemisinin based combination therapy. So we are also trying. So malaria is one of those conditions that we use two drugs at the same time to treat. We don't use just one drug because malaria parasite is always changing, always developing resistance. So the current drug recommended for treatment of malaria is what we call ACT, artemisinin-based anti-malaria. There are different kind of combination, but there must be one artemisinin-based and then another drug. So, for example, a common example is your artemether lumefantrine. There are different brand names, your Coartem, your Nonax, they are all artemether lumefantrine. So even though you are seeing it as one tablet or one drug, it's actually two things that have been combined together. Another one is artesunate camoquine. That's another combination of ACT anti-malaria. And because malaria is something so common and so endemic, anti-malaria is available for you to buy over the counter. So you can walk into any pharmacy and you can ask them for anti-malaria. You don't need a prescription, but it is best you first of all confirm that your child has malaria, and then the doctor can recommend the dose. And because we also want people to be able to easily have access to anti-malaria, it is the dosage is so easy. So it is some, in fact, they sell them by the age of the child. So if you tell them my child is between 1 to 5, there's a pack for those age. For this particular age, there's a pack for adults, and we also have pack according to the weight of the child. So we've tried to make it so simple and so easy for people to get malaria treated. So, but we have drugs for treating malaria. That is for treating simple malaria. But the key word is that it must be based, it must either contain an artemether or an artesunate, and it must be two of them at the same time. So most people, because of that, they always sell them together. So you don't need to ask for the two. They would have sold it together for you, or they would have even packaged them together. Some of them, they already mix it. So it is one tablet, but it is two drugs inside. Some of them, like artesunate camoquine, you will see the artesunate separate, you see the camoquine separate, and you now need to take them together. So that is the one. In terms of for severe malaria, we tend to use other drugs. We use things like quinine, and we use things like the IV, the injection kind of artesunate and artemether injections. It is not compulsory for you. Actually, mothers, some people believe, oh, I must go and take injections for malaria. Most malaria don't require you to take injections. If you have simple malaria, you should give the children the malaria medication by mouth, and that is the treatment for simple malaria. If it's severe, most of these injections or IV, it is for severe malaria. It is not for simple malaria. So I see a lot of parents, any little malaria, oh, we're going for injection. No, it is wrong. Injection is meant for severe malaria. And we need you to do the right thing, because one of the reasons why we're having challenges with malaria treatments and the resistance is because we're also not doing the right thing. I've seen people still using chloroquine to treat malaria. I've seen people still using only Fancida. If you don't do the right thing, you're not going to get rid of malaria on time. It's going to develop resistance. The chances of the child developing severe malaria is going to be high, and the chances of a child dying from it is going to be high. So we need to know the right thing. We need to do the right thing. So if malaria is not treated properly, it can lead to death. That's it. Malaria can kill. It's as simple as that, and it's a very dangerous thing to happen. Now, finally, before I start taking questions, how do we prevent malaria? Like I told us, malaria is a completely preventable disease. And if you remember what I told you about how you can have malaria, you can only have malaria if you are bitten by a mosquito. You can only have malaria if you are bitten by a mosquito that has been infected with the malaria parasite. So what that means is that if we can get you if we don't allow you to be bitten by a mosquito, you're not going to have malaria. So one of the first thing we do in terms of prevention of malaria is use of what we call vector control. In other words, let's prevent the mosquito from even coming in contact with you or with a child, and then we know that you're not going to have malaria. So how do we do that? We do that through using insecticide treated mosquito nets. So those nets alone are not enough, because the malaria parasites are very tiny and very smart. They can penetrate through your normal nets. But if you use nets that already been treated with insecticide, when the mosquitoes land on those nets, it kills them off. So, and that means that they won't be able to bite the child. And if they cannot bite the child, you cannot have malaria. There are also some what we call spraying, like you can just go spray the areas and try to prevent malaria, get rid of mosquitoes. And the usual whole things, you clear your bushes, no stagnant water, all those things, they are still very relevant in preventing malaria. We also have what we call prevention drugs. There are drugs that people used to take to prevent malaria. When I was growing up, we used to take what we call Sunday medicine and all that, but we stopped doing that now because we find out that people like us living in areas where there's a lot of malaria, we need to develop some level of immunity. And you only get that immunity by actually having malaria. Even though it's not 100% immunity, we call it semi-immunity. At least we have malaria, but you won't have severe malaria. But those who don't have any form of malaria before, when they have malaria, they are going to have what we call severe malaria. So that is why if somebody from a malaria-free zone, maybe in the Britain, or if they come to Nigeria, they need to be on prevention, because if they have malaria, because they don't have any form of immunity like a Nigerian who has lived in Nigeria all their life, they are going to have severe malaria and they can die from it. So we stopped doing the Sunday treatment and all that. But what we recommend, that there are some high risk people. There are people that are at high risk of malaria and severe malaria: pregnant women, children below the age of 5, children with sickle cell anemia. They are high risk population. So for those high risk population, we give them medication. So we give them travelers from malaria-free areas, those who have not been exposed to mosquito before. Those people are at risk of having severe malaria. So for them, they need to take medication to prevent malaria. So those who have sickle cell anemia, we give them paludrin. They take paludrin all their life, because so they will not have malaria. Because if they have malaria, they're going to have severe malaria. Pregnant women, we treat them twice for malaria. Whether they have malaria or not, we just treat them, because if they have malaria, it can affect them, can affect their baby. It can even lead to loss of pregnancy and all that. So pregnant women are also treated for malaria. So we have drugs for treating such people to prevent malaria. Travelers, when they are coming into malaria endemic area like Nigeria, they give them medication that they have to start taking before they come in. They will keep taking while they are here. And even 1 or 2 weeks after they left, they still have to take those medications so that they will not have malaria. And finally, now we have the malaria vaccine. Yes, we are not actually we've worked so hard for this, and it's so great. We're so grateful now to God that we have a malaria vaccine. The vaccine is still being rolled out. Currently, the WHO, the World Health Organization, recommends that malaria vaccine should be given only to children below the age of 5 living in very severe endemic areas. So those are the people that we give the vaccine. So we don't have it in Nigeria yet, but we have it in some part of Africa, and hopefully it's still being. So when something is introduced newly, we don't give to everybody. We're still studying it. So we give to only a particular group of people. We monitor those people. So when we are sure that everything is safe, it is working, it's effective, blah, 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 then it becomes something everybody can take. So the malaria vaccine is already here. It's already being used, and we're still in what we call stage 4 of the trial. We're still monitoring its use and checking after its use and seeing, and I think it's working well. So hopefully in the next few years, all of us will be taking the vaccine, or at least our children will be taking vaccine. So this is how to prevent malaria. So for those who are just joining me or you join late, I've been talking about malaria because today is World Malaria Day. So we've got to talk about malaria. It's a killer disease, but it's preventable, it is treatable. I've talked to us how we get malaria and what are the symptoms. We've talked about the simple malaria, severe malaria, treatment for malaria, and we just talked about prevention of malaria, which can be vector control, no mosquito bites, no malaria. Of course, for some high risk people, we give them drugs to prevent malaria. And then also, we now have a malaria vaccine, which I hope very soon everybody will be having. So, thank you so much for listening to the introduction part. Now, we can take our questions. Ask me any question you have, whether it's question on malaria or other questions that you have. I am happy to take them. So I'll start as usual from Instagram. So if you're on Instagram, you can drop it on the comments. If you are in the audio room, drop it in comments. I can see your comments. Of course, those on Facebook and YouTube, drop it as well. I can see it, and I'm try and answer your question. But let's start with Instagram questions. Okay. The first question here is Chummy Pure. I don't know these white patches with water in it that's all over my son's body. Okay, Chummy Pure, if your son has white patches or some swelling or some skin rashes, I also cannot say it. Because I cannot say it, I cannot say what it is. So it's best to post that kind of a question on our Facebook group because you can put a picture and then we can advise you. Alternatively, you can see your doctor. If there's any rash on your baby's skin, a doctor has to say it because it is by seeing it we know, because there are different kind of rashes. When we see it, we know what it is, and then we'll be able to tell you what to do. Don't do self-medication because it can make it worse. That's what I would advise for now. So still on Instagram, JSK Couture say my son is 11 months, weighs 10 kilos, running temperature. We went to hospital, he did tests, it was malaria. He was put on 3 days, artemether injection. He's not able to move his left leg. Okay, now this is a very popular kind of question. And I don't know why Nigerian mothers will like injections. And I don't know why our hospital likes to give the babies injections. I'm actually not a fan of injections for children, especially intramuscular injection. No. Most children don't need intramuscular injections. If your child is not vomiting, if your child is able to take any food by mouth, then that child does not need to get an injection. If your child does not have severe malaria, that child does not need to have an injection because we're trying to treat one problem we are creating and all that. So this child now has been given injection into the legs. I don't know whether they've eaten, maybe during that process a knife was hit, I don't know, or maybe the child just having pain, that's why it's not moving the leg. I actually have to see the child to be able to make up my mind. But one of the commonest thing that could have happened here is that during that process of giving injection, and most of our private hospitals, they like to give it on the buttocks, which we actually don't recommend also for children because the sciatic nerve is running that place, and it doesn't, in the medical school they will draw a very nice place so that if you go to this particular area you're not going to catch the nerve. But in some people it doesn't follow the textbook, so it runs anyhow, so you can always catch the nerve irrespective of where you give the injection. So sometimes these are the danger of injection. So injection is not always better. I know some people believe, oh, injection is better. If I just take injection, it's not true. Injection is not better. It's more risky. Or it's riskier, if you like, and it can cause this kind of problem where children can have what we call foot drop. They can't move their legs, and we need physiotherapy, and we hope the children recover fully. So you have to go back to the hospital, JSK, and let your doctors know that the child is not moving the legs and they can deal with it. But as a general thing, I would just want to tell all of you today that when your child has malaria, if your child is not vomiting, if your child is able to eat, please don't take injections. Don't. Yes, quote me to any of your doctors that say they want to give you injection. Quote me that you don't want injection, that you want to take oral medications, and there is no basis. If your child is not sick enough to be admitted to the hospital, the child is not sick enough to take injection for malaria. If the child is not sick enough to be kept overnight in the hospital, the child is not sick enough to get injections. Okay, if even when we want to treat your child for severe malaria, we don't like giving injections. We give it through the vein. I prefer artesunate, to be honest. Though you can give injections, but we only reserve it for severe malaria. So please, all this every little malaria we're getting injections, let's avoid it. All right, so JSK, okay, you're still here saying the first injection was given paracetamol injection to, I don't know. Anyway, just go back to them and let them sort it out. I just hope the child recover fully. All right, boss lady says, is it true AA genotype are prone to malaria? Okay, this is also in another, I would say it's a popular myth. I'm not even sure where it is in the textbook, medical books that say AA people have malaria more. No, they don't. I guess it comes from the fact that people that actually are AS, you can protect them against malaria more. So the people that tend to have malaria more is actually the SS. They are the one that are the high risks of severe malaria. So because their own red blood cells are already breaking down normally, then malaria is coming into that same red cell and causing it to even break faster. And then their blood level is not high already. So there are many issues there. So we don't want sicklers, those who have sickle cell anemia, we don't want them to have malaria. So malaria can create a crisis for them. It can lead to one of their crises, one of the trigger for their crisis. So because of that, those who have sickle cell anemia, we give them paludrin every day of their life. They take paludrin to prevent malaria because of their crisis. So for other people, you can have malaria if you are bitten by a mosquito, whether you are AA or AS, doesn't matter. If you are an AA and you don't get bitten by a mosquito, you are not going to have malaria. So you don't have malaria by just being AA or by walking around. No, you have to have contact with mosquito that has bitten somebody else who has malaria. So that is how that works. All right. Okay, GSK says I didn't request for injection. I'm very sorry, yeah, but they shouldn't have given you injection. Shifa girl say my 1 month old is always scared and shaking her legs, and she shakes at the sound of any little noise. Should I be worried? Okay, it's okay for children to respond to noise. It's really sudden noises. They respond to it. They can turn. They can statue. We call it statue. It's different from shaking. So I really, because so when parent has question, I need to always be sure what you're talking about. Sometimes I prefer you send me a video of what the child does so I can make up my own mind. So statue is different from a child who is shaking continuously. So if a child is, this is what I would call shaking. The child goes on for those who can see me. But if a child just statue like that and that's it, that is a statue. You also statue, don't you? If something suddenly you hear sudden or you don't, it's a natural response. There's nothing wrong. So if it's a statue reaction, it's fine. If your child is shaking continuously, you need to see us because we need to be sure that it's not a convulsion or a seizure. So statue is fine. I have a feeling you are describing what I call a statue reaction, which is perfectly normal. So maybe that's what you describe as being scared. Okay, I think I finished with Instagram. I can't see any on live audio. Those on Facebook, thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Urala, for telling me you can see me. Thank you. Okay, we don't seem to have questions on Facebook. Okay, we have one question. What are the symptoms of malaria in children? Okay, the symptoms of malaria in children and in adults are similar. It's the same fever. The thing with malaria is that malaria can actually present with virtually any symptom. Yes, in fact, any symptom can be malaria. So, and that is why maybe most time when people go to the hospital, people always think malaria first. But the common ones is that they can have malaria, they can have fever. Fever is very common with malaria. It's very rare for somebody to have malaria without having a fever. And when I say fever, fever means high body temperature. The person is hot to touch. You get a thermometer, you put it in their mouth or in the armpit, and it is reading 37.5 and above. That is fever. That is what we call fever. It is not malaria that is the fever. It is your body being hot. It's just fever is just a description. It is not a diagnosis. So anybody's body is hot, that is fever. You check with your thermometer, it is 37.5 and above, that is fever. Of course, they will have poor appetite. They don't want to eat. They are tired. They can be sleeping too much. They are complaining. Children most time can't tell you they have headaches. They can't tell you they have body pains because they don't know how to describe such. But you just notice that they are not well. They are not playing. They are not active. They don't want to eat. They can vomit. They can have cough. They can have diarrhea. They can have all those things as part of malaria. So please do not treat your children when they don't have malaria. I know mothers that will say every 3 months they go and treat their children for malaria, or every 2 months. Please don't stop. Don't do it. The fact that we have given you anti-malaria in as non as something you don't need a prescription for, it does not mean we should abuse it. We still need our children to have some exposure. We still need them to actually have the malaria, and we treat it. So don't just treat them when you don't have malaria. You are going to be contributing to our resistance, mosquito developing resistance against our medication. And already we don't have many more drugs. Honestly, that's the truth. We don't have new drugs for malaria. So we're only stuck with the ACT now. If anything happens to the ACT, we're in trouble. So, and already I think some people are already talking about people developing resistance. So resistance means that when we now give your child the drugs, they won't work. That is what resistance means. So it's when like that is why if you take chloroquine now for malaria, it's most of the time it's not going to work, because most malaria parasites we have are resistant to chloroquine. So where some of them are resistant to fancy that's why those drugs are no longer in use, because they don't work anymore. So if we develop, if our mosquitoes, the parasites now, the malaria parasites develop resistance to the one we have now, we're in serious trouble, because we don't have so many other drugs. We have quinine, we have, those are the drugs we have. So there are very few. So we don't want that to happen. And that is why we want all of us to be responsible for making sure we use drugs only when it's needed. So that is that. I hope that's helpful. The next question says, my 5-month-old is having cough and catarrh. It is 2 days. What can I do? Most children can have cough and catarrh. Most of the time, it's a virus causing that. It's not malaria. Especially if they don't have fever with it, it's most likely virus. The good thing about virus or viral infection is that they will go by themselves. Most of them don't require any drugs. So all we need to do is to keep children away from people that have cough and catarrh. That's where they must have caught it from another person who has the virus, who is coughing, who is having catarrh. And so, but once the child has it, well, there's nothing you can do. It's going to clear by itself. All you need to do is just make sure you breastfeed the baby, keep them warm. If the child is having fever with it, or the child is breathing very fast, we worry about pneumonia, and then you need to go to hospital for that. So I hope that is helpful, Licia. Okay, well, Felicia, say thank you. Thank you. Well done, ma. The next person says, if a malaria parasite is negative, but she vomits after eating and body is hot, what is the likely thing? Okay, there are many things that can cause body being hot. There are many things that can cause fever. So if the body is hot and all that, you still have to go to the hospital. Now, we as doctors, we sometimes know that malaria parasites. So the way we do malaria parasite tests, it means we take blood from the baby and we look for the malaria parasite inside. It is possible for you to take blood, and that part, at the time you are taking the blood, no parasite is moving. No parasite is moving there. So you may not see anything. And also, even the people that have to look, they have to look very well in the mosquito, in the film, to be able to see the parasite. You have to be very experienced microscopists to see. So sometimes it is possible for a child to have malaria and we don't see malaria parasite. It is very possible. So sometimes we repeat our malaria parasite twice or 3 times, just making sure, and we try to do it when the fever is highest, because the what causes fever in children with malaria, and that is why the fever goes up and down. I didn't go into all those details, but the kind of fever you have in malaria is the fever that sometimes, it goes up. So sometimes that's why people say, I'm fine in the morning, then maybe in the evening I start having chills and start having fever, because the fever coincide at the time that the malaria parasite. So what malaria parasite does that when it enters the red blood cells, it multiplies, and then gets to a certain size, it will break. And it will break that red blood cells and release more parasites and some other things, which is actually what causes fever. So if we take the blood when the fever is highest, we are likely going to catch the malaria parasite. So we do that. So that is one way. Another thing is that sometimes mothers have also started giving anti-malaria. So when you give anti-malaria, we may not see malaria parasite, but the malaria is still ongoing. So doctors can use their own judgment, clinical judgment, so treat sometimes for malaria even when malaria parasite is negative, if they have a very strong reason to believe the child could still have malaria. But there are many other things in children that can cause fever. So this child needs to be examined. We need to check the throat. We need to check the ears. We need to check all those things. We need to examine the child. So sometimes if we are checking the throat, we can see the tonsils are inflamed or the ears are inflamed. Or then we know it is not malaria. But unfortunately, many people don't do that. And this is what is all that is wrong with mothers going to the lab instead of going to the hospital. So a child is having fever, the mother just assume it's malaria. Some of them will just start treating with malaria and nothing else. Some will at least go to the lab, and the lab in Lagos, everybody's going to have one plus malaria. I'm telling you. So because everybody is just out for their own thing and businesses and all that. So it is wrong because the lab scientist is not going to examine your child. He will not see whether there's any hair discharge, whether there's any tonsils, whether the urine, we should do urine tests, whether it's urinary tract infection. There are so many things that can cause fever in children. So this is what a doctor does in extra. So it is not just doing malaria tests. We actually examine to look for all the things that can explain that fever and deal with it. So please go to the hospital and let them do the right thing. And we also do other tests as well. We can do urine tests, we can do we do the full blood count. We look for other things that can cause fever before we make up our mind. All right. So don't do lab tests by yourself. Go to the hospital. Let's not start putting the us before the cats, or is it the other way around? I'm always messing it up. So just do it the right order. That's the point I'm saying. All right. I think that's the question. I don't know whether I have any more questions. Okay, yeah, there's another question here. Yeah, I can see all the questions here now on Instagram. I just want to be sure I didn't miss out anything here. Okay, I think I've answered that one. So somebody else is asking here, like, can we take kids for malaria tests once every 3 months? No, you don't. Or before they resume back to school? No, you don't. So malaria is not hidden. If you have malaria, you have malaria. So if your child is not sick, they don't have malaria. Okay, so if they are not sick, so you don't need to go look for malaria if the child is not sick, because that means they don't have malaria. Because if they have malaria, they will be sick with malaria, and you have the symptoms of malaria, and you treat them. So there's no point looking for malaria. There's no point going to do blood tests for malaria. There's no point giving malaria medication routinely. Let's not do that. So just wait. If the children have symptoms, even if the children are bitten by mosquitoes, it doesn't mean you have to do malaria tests. It doesn't mean you have to go look for malaria treatment. Because like I told us, mosquito does not necessarily mean you are going to have malaria. It is only the female mosquito, Anopheles mosquito, that has already bitten somebody else with malaria, that can only bite you and give you malaria. So you may be bitten by some mosquitoes and still not have malaria. So there's absolutely no basis for going to look for malaria tests and all that if you don't have any symptoms of malaria. So that is what I would say about that. So boss lady, instead of spending our time and energy on doing malaria tests, let's look for how to prevent the malaria. So let's make sure that our children don't sleep. Let's make sure the children sleep under nets, insecticide treatment, and let's keep the house clean, our environment free. Get your house fumigated. Get rid of mosquitoes. If you get rid of mosquitoes, you will get rid of malaria. So that is all I'm going to say. Then somebody said some doctors don't do tests, they just prescribe malaria and typhoid medication. So common in Nigeria. Yes, I agree with you. And I think it's so common in Lagos, especially. I don't know whether it's all over Nigeria, but at least I know of Lagos. Please, it is very, very, very unlikely for you to have malaria and typhoid together. Very, very rare. Typhoid is actually a very serious illness. Most people that are going up and down claiming they have typhoid fever, I see you coming to type on Facebook to ask me and tell me you have malaria and typhoid. You don't. You don't. If you have typhoid, you'll be lying down on the hospital bed. You'll be very sick. It's a very serious illness, but I don't know where everybody starts. I don't know how he started, but everybody started just coming down with malaria typhoid in Lagos. And most people say they because they do a wider test. And now that one is another topic on its own. I think maybe I'll just come back another day and talk about typhoid fever and talk about wider tests. Number one, wider test on its own does not make a diagnosis of typhoid fever. So wider test is a form of antibody test. It's a test that you have to do twice. You have to see it rising. So doing it once does not make any diagnosis. And many people in Lagos don't do it properly. They don't do it well. So because it's not a test you just do bam and the next minute you have the result. No, it's not. So all those 1/80, 1/160, whatever they wrote for you, most of them are nonsense. They've not done it properly. And it is not even actually how we diagnose typhoid fever most of the time. So it's a supportive test, but it is more of the rising titer. So you've done one and you do another one that makes sense, not just a single test. So most people just go and do tests and say, oh, you have malaria typhoid. You are still walking up and down, going to office, coming back. I'm treating myself for malaria typhoid. Most of them is nonsense. There's nothing. You most likely you don't have the typhoid. You may have malaria, maybe. I don't know if you have fever and they've done the malaria test. It's possible, but typhoid is not that common and it's a very serious illness. So, and is don't take those diagnoses from people. If any doctor is making a diagnosis of malaria typhoid, immediately I'm taking a step backward from such doctors. It shows somebody who is not thorough, who doesn't know what they are doing, who is just covering everything, and which is not right. It's very unlikely for people to have two diagnoses at the same time. You either have one. It's possible, but it's very, very uncommon. It's not as common as the way everybody in Lagos is having malaria typhoid. Trust me, it is not. So avoid such doctors. Go to a proper hospital where they will see you, examine the child, do their tests and all that. And there are other symptoms that come with typhoid fever and all that before we jump onto the malaria typhoid and all that. So I hope that is helpful. Beauty say, what can you recommend for a 4-month-old that is teething? Nothing. Okay, nothing to recommend. Teething is a normal phenomenon. It doesn't make a child sick. It doesn't give them fever. It doesn't give them diarrhea. It doesn't give them any illness. So it's normal. I've done a podcast on teething. So if you want to listen to that podcast, or you go to our website, you can read about teething. Just check it out on, I think, Ask Dr. Gbemisola ATP podcasts. You can listen to that. And you please do not give any teething mixture. I beg you, don't give teething mixture. If your child is sick, the child is not teething, the child is sick, take the child to the hospital. If a child has fever, child has diarrhea, child is coughing, child has any other symptoms, don't make a diagnosis of teething. That child is sick. That child needs to see my colleagues and be treated. It is not teething that is making a child to be very sick. Okay, it is a mother's favorite diagnosis. But it's not what we recommend. It's not a diagnosis for the pediatrician. Teething is as normal as walking, as sitting, as every other thing the child is doing, which is normal. So it's not something that requires any recommendation or treatment. If the child's gum is itching and all that, you can give them like teethers, like toys that are soft that they can bite on, but make sure you wash those toys, make sure you sterilize them. You can put them in the fridge, make sure they're cool. Just something to cool the gums is fine, but nothing more than that. No medication, absolutely no medication. All right, next person say, my 2-month-old exclusive breastfed shows signs of constipation 4 weeks ago. What are the signs of the constipation? It's more relevant to tell us exactly what you meant by signs of constipation. The child is not passing stool. Are the stools hard and all that? Because that is what, because babies on exclusive breastfeeding, they don't have to pass stools every day. They may not pass stools for 2 weeks, and there's nothing wrong with that. And when eventually they pass their stools, it'll be normal stools. It will not be hard. It will be just normal stools. So I really prefer you tell me what exactly you meant, and then I can tell you what to do. Okay, another person said, Chifa girl, my 3-year-old has symptoms of UTI. We took her urine for test, but the urine was contaminated, of course, because there's a way to collect urine for urine culture. If your child has UTI, the doctors will tell you how to collect the urine, because you have to collect the urine in a way that it is not contaminated. For how old is your girl? Your girl is 3 years old. A 3-year-old girl we should be able to collect it, a midstream urine for clean every area. We allow the child to pass some urine out, and then we take some in the middle, and she can pass the rest out. So that is how we normally collect. We try to make it so that the contamination will not be there. So you just need to do another one, that's all. But your doctors would have started your baby on treatment when we are waiting for the results anyway, I hope. So just go back to your doctor and ask. I'm sure they'll be able to tell you what to do. Lady, my 2 months old. Okay, yeah. What are the signs of okay? She pulls once a day. That is not a sign of constipation. That is normal. That's normal. There's nothing wrong with baby pulling once a day. So babies on exclusive breastfeeding can pull up to 12 times a day, or they can pull maybe once in 2 weeks, and it's all normal. So if you want to know more about about babies and the care of babies, what is normal, what is abnormal, we have the First Time Mom series of products. I'll recommend you get that. If you send us a DM, or if you check on our Instagram page or any of our platform, you will see the link on how you can get that. You understand some of this, so you know what is normal for urine, what is normal for stool, so you don't worry. Your baby is fine. I don't see anything wrong with the baby here. That is not constipation at all. Okay. Just make sure you breastfeed your baby exclusively. Yeah, baby. Somebody said, what can an 8-month-old what will cause an 8-month-old to throw up when feeding? If you're overfeeding the baby, if it's too much, so baby can throw up when feeding if the food is too much. I don't know. What are you feeding the baby especially? Some babies are also intolerant of what you're feeding them. They don't like it and they will throw it up. So this kind of question is too unspecific. We need to be more specific to know exactly. And when your baby throw up, what does baby throw up? Is it every food? Is it only a little bit of it coming back? At what point? Is it right from the first spoon, or at the end when you've given like 200 mils of pap to the 8-month-old that should only be taking maybe 50 mils? So we need to have all those information before we can tell you. It doesn't always mean there's something wrong. It may just be we need to do the right thing. Okay, I think we are coming to the end. Oh, yes, it's 7. Let's just round up. But I'll just answer the last 2 questions on Facebook. I don't see any question on live audio, so that's fine. I believe you're understanding everything. Okay, if malaria is hot. Okay, I think I've answered this question already. Titila, they say, how often should a 2-month-old pass urine normally? Okay. It's difficult for you to know how often, because urine, I believe your baby is in diaper. So, but the average is that most babies will pass urine within 30 minutes of being fed. So once a baby is taking a meal, within 30 minutes of their feeding, they will pass urine. So for babies, it's not how often that matters. It is what quantity the baby pass in 24 hours. So for us, that is what we need to know. So Sissy Lade, again, you may also want to get a copy of the FTM companion, because all these kind of questions you will know, so that you will know when to worry, when to see the pediatrician, when to all this kind of information is in our FTM companion. I'm trying to see whether I can get a copy of it. Yeah, we have the full one that is just a book. Also, you have the one that is with the videos. So all the videos explained and all that. So, but for babies, we only worry if they are not passing urine at all, like the diaper is completely dry. And what I normally tell mothers, because mothers are always saying, the baby is not passing urine, diaper is dry. take it off and just let's see where. So feed the baby well, breastfeed exclusively, and then see whether they make urine or not. So if they are passing urine and it's a lot, that's fine. If you think the urine is not a lot, we collect it. We collect it and then we'll measure it and then we'll see how much. So the amount of urine the baby is supposed to make is we measure it in terms of how many mils per their weight per hour. So there's an amount we expect per kilo per hour. So we expect them to at least have 1 mil of urine. So if your baby is 3 kilos, we expect your baby to make at least 3 mils of urine. It's not a lot. So in 1 hour, it's not really a lot of urine. So that's fine. So because some of you use this diaper that is so hyper dry and sometimes you're not sure. So there's no reason to worry. Okay, these are all non-malaria kind of questions, but it's fine. I think I'll take the last question and then I will call it a night. So the last question, which food can I use to boost my 10-month-old immunity, 22-month-old immunity? All food will help you boost immunity. The most important is that the child is taking all the food in the right proportion. So if your child is taking good what we used to call balanced diet, but we're trying to move away from the word balance. We talk more of adequate nutrition. Then your child's immunity will be improved. And more than food, your baby also needs to take the immunization. Those are the ways to improve immunity. Breastfeeding also helps because through breast milk you can pass some of your own immune cells to your baby. So I hope that helped. So there's no one special food that is the immune booster food. No. The baby needs to take all of the various food, especially your fruits and your vegetables and all the other food, because if you don't take all of them, your child will have malnutrition, and malnutrition is the number one reason your immunity will be low in children, apart from others, rare conditions that can cause low immunity. The number one reason why babies will have low immunity is malnutrition. And that is why pediatrician we are big on food. We want children to eat well, because when they're eating well and their weight is good, we know that they are able to fight infection on their own. But when they are not eating well and their weight is low, they are malnourished, we know that we are dealing with a lot more. All right, so thank you so much. I hope I've not missed out any question on Instagram. Thank you everybody who has joined me. Okay, there's a last one question on Instagram. Okay, I've answered that one. Oluwa Metsi, you mentioned teething is a normal phenomenon, but my baby's teeth is yet to come out. He's 10 months old. Yes, it's a normal phenomenon. Your baby's teeth is going to come out. I didn't say it has to come out at 8 months. Some baby's teeth may not come out until they are 1 year old or 13 months old. This is normal. Everything in life is a range. So some people will do some things. So when we say baby's teeth should come out by 5 to 7 months, what we're saying is that in 50% of our babies, they bring out their teeth by 5 to 7 months. But we know some people will do it earlier. Some babies are born with teeth. I hope you know that. Some babies are actually born with their own teeth. But some babies will not have their own teeth until they are 1 year old or 13 months old. And it is still all normal for us. So don't need to worry. You don't need to be scared at all. No, don't be scared. So what you need to do is that, but the dentist want to see your baby at the age of 1 year for their first dental appointment. I know it's not common for most of us in Nigeria. We don't go to the dentist, but ideally we should be doing that. So the dentist want to see the baby for the very first dental appointment at the age of 1 year. Teeth or no teeth, just go to the dentist. Because the dentists have a way of checking whether the teeth are there. They do x-rays, they can see the teeth coming down and all that. But there's no reason to worry at all. So maybe his first teeth, set of teeth rather, will come when they're about 13 months old. So don't worry. I always joke that I'm sure I've never seen a toothless child like an adult who never has teeth. Everybody will eventually have their teeth. So, but the timing may just be a little bit different. So your doctor has already told your baby is fine. I'm also telling your baby is fine. So now you have two witnesses and then you can relax. So thank you so much for everybody for joining us. Remember that you can always watch all these ACP live. If you mix it or you're just copying, you can watch it again on our Facebook, on our Instagram TV channel, on our YouTube channel. You can always watch them. And if you still have any questions, please go straight to our Facebook group. You can always ask your questions on our Facebook group from Mondays to Saturday. Um, we have 3 groups. Actually, we have 4 groups now. We have the Ask the Pediatricians first, the main group with over 700,000 parents, where you can drop your questions. All our pediatricians, our professionals, our moderators, they'll be there to answer your questions 24 hours every day from Mondays to Saturday for free. So you can always post your questions there. And of course, we have our ATP family. So the Ask the Pediatrician is for the children's health issues. ATP family is for the adults. So if you have any your own personal health issues, our family physicians can assist you on ATP family. Then we have ATP still a mom for those who have lost either pregnancies or children, and you want some psychological support, you want some help. We have trained peer support workers who can be there along with you through that journey. We provide kind of emotional support on that group. So ATP Still a Mom is a group. We also have our First Time Mom group, FTM Baby Care. For those of you who are about to start the journey, or you are had your first baby and you want to learn more about peculiar issue, because first time moms are like peculiar in terms of their own needs are more peculiar. So we also have the FTM series of products that you can get for those who need that. So the FTM Baby Care, just look for it on Facebook, you can't miss it. It's a rights group. Or if you send us a message on our WhatsApp number, I'm sure our WhatsApp number is showing on the screen, and I think I wrote this. I'm not sure whether I wrote this on Instagram, but if you check on our bio after you say it, we can help you to navigate to each of our groups. If you want to have private consultation with any of our professionals, we run ATP clinics. You can chat, you can have consultation. Of course, it's not free, but you are welcome to send us a WhatsApp message or email us at clinicsatp@gmail.com, or send us WhatsApp on +234, because of this on Instagram, +234 9056 916818, +234 9056 916818. If you miss it, just check any of ATP pages anywhere, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You will get that number, and you can send us a WhatsApp on an email at clinicsatp@gmail.com, and somebody will be there to advise you further. And like I said earlier, this we do, apart from what we do online through health education information, we also do community medical outreaches, and we are so excited to be doing our May outreach. And I realize I've not been talking about it a lot on the platform, so we're going to do May outreaches. We have chapters in all the states of Nigeria. We have also in Ghana, and we're going to go to our communities. We're going to do our Children's Day community outreaches, which we usually do in May, June, and then in October, we do our National Independence Day outreaches. So the May outreaches is coming up next month. So we welcome you to join us. You can support, you can volunteer, you can donate cash, you can donate items as well for the children. So please support us. All our bank details is on the screen, and I think I wrote it on Instagram. Nothing is too small. You can actually sponsor one child for 5,000 naira, and we're looking at reaching about 100,000 children. So you can sponsor one child for 5,000 naira, or for £10, or for $10 or more. Or you can link us with organization that can support us. Please do it, and God will bless you tremendously. So you can watch out for another episode of ATP Live next week. And for those who want to follow on podcast, you can also listen to ATP Live on podcast. On my podcast, Ask Dr. Gbemi ATP. It is available on almost all the podcast platform: Anchor, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts. I think Apple Podcast is coming up, so you can listen on any of those platform, Google Podcasts as well. So you will learn a lot about every health. You should just follow and keep learning. So thank you so much, everyone, and join us in the battle against malaria. We look forward to the malaria vaccine coming to Nigeria as well. And so I'll see you again next week by God's grace. So till then, remember you can always go to ask your questions on our Facebook group, or you can drop us an email and I will try and do our best to answer your question. Bye bye, everyone. Bye.